complex, the better. As you saw from that earlier chart, ideally, you would use a phrase, right? Something like this: I love pizza with onions. It's long enough and complex enough that it's basically uncrackable. Unless you happen to know that I love pizza with onions, you would never guess this, right? So, easy to remember, easy to type, hard to guess, essentially uncrackable. You should think in terms of phrases like this. You could just take 4 random words, right? Replace the A's or the O's, something like that. You're going to have very difficult to guess passwords. Again, easy to remember, easy to type, hard to guess, hard to crack. But better yet, use a password manager. Okay, a password manager is software designed to store your passwords in an encrypted form and be available from multiple devices. So I have a password manager. 1Password is my suggestion to you. There are other good ones out there. It's on my phone. It's on all my computers. I only need to know 2 passwords, and I only know 2 passwords. Despite dozens of accounts between my Intrust accounts and my personal accounts, I only know 2 passwords. The password manager generates stuff like this. My Facebook password looks like that. My bank password looks like that. I literally just say, give me a complex random password, the longest one that will take. So if my bank will take a 256-character password, I set it to 256, I hit the button, and I get a crackable password. Okay? It's stored in the encrypted vault of the password manager. I have an individual password for my personal stuff, and I have an Intrust password. In fact, by policy in Intrust, you must use a 1Password, and you must put all business-related passwords in. Okay? So whether I'm on my phone or I'm on my computer, wherever I am, all the time, all I need to know is my either personal passphrase or my Intrust passphrase to unlock the password manager to get to all my other passwords. Before I say anything else, does this make sense? So if I go to log into my bank, for example, I log into my personal instance of the password manager. I go to USAA.com. It recognizes that site and offers to put in my username and password for me. I don't even have to type it in anymore. Which also helps to be keystroke logger. It's a special type of malicious software. So all of my password managers are stored in here. They're all encrypted. It uses something called zero trust encryption. 1Password cannot read my password unless they can get my passphrase, right? So again, I only know 2 passphrases. I strongly recommend to you, as does people like Microsoft and the FBI and so forth, that you get a password manager. Hang on a second. As soon as you do, you're going to try it and you're going to be like, Dave, you suck. I hate you. I will never use this. Because for about 2 days, it's going to be really cumbersome and difficult for you to figure out how it works. And then once you get a handle on it, you're going to be like, Dave, I love you. You're awesome. How did I ever live without this? I would never go back to not having a password manager. But for a couple of days, until I sort of understood how it worked, it was very frustrating to use. There are many good password managers out there. Again, I got links, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can vet these things out for yourself. My recommendation to you is 1Password, the number 1 password. However, there are other good ones as well. Get a password manager. Once you get over the initial friction of that, the ability for you to only have to remember 1 or possibly 2 ridiculous passphrases will make your life much easier and will make you more or less unhappy, at least from an identity takeover perspective. You can create these insane passwords for every account. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, go ahead and ask your question.
You just answered it. I wanted to know the one you use.
1Password would be my recommendation.
1Password?
So, multi-factor authentication, right? We talked about this before, a little bit. Multi-factor authentication, 2-step verification, 2-factor authentication, all essentially mean the same thing. And even if you don't know the fancy terminology here, it's that extra code you usually get texted to you when you try to log in. Right? You're going to log into your bank, you enter your username and password, aka your credentials, and then it wants to text you a 6-digit code, right? And that 6-digit code usually lasts like 30 seconds, right? So it's temporary, and unless someone can intercept that in that period of time, you're good, right? You see Microsoft tell you MFA. You see the insurance people tell you MFA. The FBI has written voluminously on this, as has DHS and CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, Security Agency, about why you need MFA. MFA is not foolproof, but it makes it much, much more difficult for the bad guys to get in, because now even if I can guess, crack, or steal your password, I still can't get in without that code. Does this make sense to everybody? And the code typically rotates every 30 seconds, so there's a very short window for me to get in. Now, that said, This also is not foolproof, and some methods are better than others. Okay? Increasingly, and we see this all the time in the business, there's something called a man-in-the-middle attack. You get a link to something like that proposal document I showed you earlier. And you click on that link and it takes you to that Microsoft login, which looks very authentic and legitimate to the naked eye, right? So you enter your credentials there. They're literally sitting between you and Microsoft. They send that off to Microsoft's server. Microsoft says, okay, this looks legit, sends back a request for that code, which they send to you. You type in that code, it goes to them, they send it to Microsoft, and guess what? They're now you. Yes, this is all real, unfortunately. So, any MFA is better than nothing. You should turn on MFA. If you don't do anything else I tell you today, turn on MFA on every one of your accounts. Yes, I know it creates friction. Yes, I know it can be frustrating. Don't take my word for it. Take the FBI's word, take Microsoft's word. This is probably the single most effective thing you can do. And that extra 2 seconds it takes you to type that in is well worth the protection it will create. It will significantly raise the bar, especially if you have strong, unique passwords. Again, you're now maybe not quite at the Jesse Owens level. Maybe you're like at the Florence Joyner Kersey level, right? But you're already smoking the older people in the back. They're getting eaten by the bear. If you just do this thing, okay? Now, again, there are different types of doing this, okay? The most common type is text message to your phone. Again, way better than nothing. But that is not ideal, and increasingly, because of these man-in-the-middle attacks, fairly easy to defeat. Also, I want to make a special point here. We talked a little bit about voice cloning, and I'm going to come back to this again here in a minute. If you have any account that allows you to use your voice to authenticate, especially anything related to finances, you need to turn that off immediately. Because again, I can call your phone, I can get your voicemail greeting, I can go to one of these free tools, clone your voice, and now I will be in your bank account. I am not making this up. This is a real thing, people, okay? If you have a bank or anything related to your finances in any way that allows you to authenticate with your voice, turn it off, and if you can't turn it off, find a new bank. That's how serious I am about this, okay? So, text okay. The better step, well, the ultimate step, is you get what's known as a hardware key. It's a separate device that you have to plug in to your computer or your phone or whatever to get that code. Right? That's usually too extreme for most people. They cost money, people lose them. You know, if you're a nut like me, where you have very sensitive information, then a hardware key will make sense. But for the most part, the hardware key does not make sense for the average person. The better step is to get an authenticator app. This is a soft piece of software you install typically on your phone, okay? And you sync it up with your accounts. Like Microsoft has their authenticator app. To log into Microsoft, once MFA is turned on, you can force it to use the app. The app is on my phone. If you want to get that 6-digit code, you not only have to physically possess my phone, you have to be able to
little
unlock
fork
the
for
phone.
me. They didn't give me a
The app does
fork.
not send text to my phone. The 6-digit code that comes through is encrypted. It can only be read by the app, and you got to have my phone to get to it, right? There are third-party authenticator apps like Auth from Twilio. So all of my Microsoft accounts, I have several for different, like the City, Wright, Intrust. I have various different Microsoft 365 accounts. They all use that authenticator app. All my personal stuff, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever else, I have the authenticator app set up. Unless I just simply can't use an authenticator app, I don't get the 6-digit codes via text. Because your phone can be SIM swapped. If I know enough information about you, because I stole your data in a data breach, I can call Verizon or T-Mobile. How many of you here have had to replace a mobile phone? Probably everybody at least once, right? How many of you here had to, were able to do it over the phone? Like you already had another phone and you just had them swap the number to another phone. Okay, the CEO, the former CEO of X/Twitter, Jack Dorsey, the guy that invented, was SIM swap. Someone called up his cellular carrier, pretended to be him, had enough information to convince him, and they swapped his phone number to another physical device, so now all of his email and everything are going to that phone. This is a real thing. Now, is anyone in this room going to be SIM swapped? Probably not. But you got to understand it's a real thing, okay? So between SIM swapping and these man-in-the-middle attacks, you're better off to use an authenticator app. It is much more difficult to defeat that. And these apps are free. So everything I've talked about so far, strong unique password is free. Yes, you might have to pay for the password manager. Perhaps it'll be a modest fee. MFA is free. Costs you nothing to do this other than the time and friction to turn it on, right? I want to touch on this just briefly, passkeys. This is a newer technology. The idea is it will eventually replace passwords. This is an article I wrote about it for the Business Courier. It's linked in here if you want to go read the whole thing. Many sites still do not support this. You know, if you have the option to use passkeys, it's a good option. It probably eventually will replace passwords, but if you hear the terminology, you'll at least have some idea there. Patch management, updating the software in your devices, right? Again, one of the 5 items from Microsoft and the insurance people, you must update the software in your devices. If you have a device, whether it's your idiotic internet coffee maker, or your doorbell, or your TV, or your computer, or your phone, or whatever, and it does not get updates from the manufacturer, it will eventually be hacked. It will eventually be hacked. There are tools online like Shodan, search engine designed to find Internet of Things devices. So if I suddenly read on the dark web that coffee maker X has a certain flaw in it, and that I can get in that coffee maker and then use it to get into other devices on your network, which is a very real thing, I can use Shodan to try to find that coffee maker. If you happen to have one of those, guess what? I might be in your computer right now trying to steal your money. I'm not